Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Stand Tall. It's September 23rd. We are in chapter 9 of The Art of War, verse 10. There are the four useful branches of military knowledge, which enable the Yellow Emperor to vanquish four other sovereigns. I believe those four are: number 11, all armies prefer high ground to low and sunny places to dark. 12, if you are careful of your men and camp on hard ground, the army will be free from disease of every kind, and this will spell victory. 13. When you come to a hill or a bank, occupy the sunny side, with the slope on your right rear. Thus you will at once act for the benefit of your soldiers and utilize the natural advantages of the ground. 14. When, in consequence of heavy rains up country, a river which you wish to ford is swollen and flecked with foam, you must wait until it subsides. And it goes on to talk a little bit more about terrain and things like that. We'll get there in the next couple of verses. Let's jump over here to the alternate version and see a little bit more. Master Sun says, it was by advantage of the situation in these four basic ways the Yellow Emperor overcame four wars. Zhang Yu says, all martial arts began with the Yellow Emperor, a Taoist ruler of late prehistoric times, circa 2400 BCE, so he is mentioned here. Ordinarily, Master Sun says, an army likes high places and dislikes low ground, values light and despises darkness. Mei Yaochen says, high places are exhilarating, so people are comfortable, and they are also convenient for the force of momentum, which he talked about. Low ground is damp, which promotes illnesses and makes it hard to fight. Wang Ji says, when people spend a long time in dark and wet places, they become depressed and ill. Well, that alone, it makes this reading beneficial. Master Sun says, take care of physical health and stay where there are plenty of resources. When there is no sickness in the army, it is said to be invincible. Mei Yaochen says, those who know these things can be certain of victory by the force of their momentum. So, getting sick, having weak soldiers, these are the things that slow you down. Master Sun says, when there are hills or embankments, keep on their sunny side with them to your right rear. This is an advantage to a military force, the help of the land. Zhang Yu says, advantage in a military operation is getting help from the land. When it comes upstream and froth is coming down on the current, if you want to cross, wait until it settles. Cao Cao says, this is lest the river suddenly swell when you are half across. Okay, so this is all about positioning, taking advantage of the terrain. And since this is about maneuvering, of course, is the chapter title. And so the reflection of the Yellow Emperor, right? He took advantage of the natural terrain. And that's what's important, I think. And to take away that no matter where you're at, and we kind of do cover this a lot, but it's always good to go over it again. So let's go over here to September 23rd, the most secure fortress. Remember that your ruling reason becomes unconquerable when it rallies and relies on itself, so that it won't do anything contrary to its own will, even if its position is irrational. How much more unconquerable if its judgments are careful and made rationally? Therefore, the mind freed from passions is an impenetrable fortress, a person who has no more secure place of refuge for all time. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 8.48. The most secure fortress out of the Daily Stoic starts with that reflection by Marcus. When you rely on yourself, it won't do anything contrary to its own will, even if its position is irrational. So think about all of the positioning, right? When the rain is falling, don't be irrational. Make the rational judgment. If you have the hill to your right, the high ground, this gives you momentum. When you're ruling, when you're, a general, you have to be rational at all time, not for your sake, but for the sake of your men. Bruce Lee once made an interesting claim. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, he said, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. When we repeat an action so often it becomes unconscious behavior, we can default to it without thinking. It's important to remember for good habits and bad habits. Training in the martial arts or combat is a deeply thoughtful study of movement. We sometimes think of soldiers as automatons, but what they've actually built is a steady pattern of unconscious behaviors. Any of us can build these. training in the martial arts or combat is a deeply thoughtful study of movement, much like we're studying movement in the art of war. When Marcus, so the pattern of unconscious behaviors, right? These repetitions, these daily reps, these things to remind us, even if it's repetitive, and even if he's mentioned it in other chapters, the thing is that needs to be repeated, because these are the fundamental. It's like there are so many situations when the ground you're on matters. There's just nothing more to it than that. Having high ground matters. And if you're going to be encamped, don't be in, while having a dark, damp, dangerous, not dangerous, but a camouflaged area might be beneficial for you in the short run. You can't stay there in the long run. So when Marcus says that a mind can get to a place where it won't do anything contrary to its own will, even if its position is irrational, what he means as the proper training can change your default habit. So train yourself to give up anger, and you won't be angry at every fresh slight. Train yourself to avoid gossip, and you won't get pulled into it. Train yourself on any habit, and you'll be able to unconsciously go to that habit in trying times. This makes me think of something I was listening to by Alex Hormozy. He calls it the legacy test. And I think it's the legacy test or the veteran test or something like that. And it's like, if this same thing happened to me and you iterate it again 1,000 times in your head, would it still be as frustrating or angry, anger inducing and things like that? So I thought that was an interesting technique. He used it and equated it to, well, the first time he heard it and then used it was when a cleaner messed up one of his shirts, and he was like really upset about it. It was a really nice shirt of his, and it's like, I think we can all relate. Like, I've lost good shirts, but like, are you going to act like that 1,000 more times the next time one of your favorite shirts gets ruined? And is it beneficial? And if it's not, then why are you angry now? So thinking about it in that regard, so think about which behaviors you'd like to be able to default to if you could. How many of them have you practiced only once? Let today be twice. So I think that's a perfect way to close and keep standing tall, is these repetitive behaviors of always checking what kind of ground we're on. That's what makes us successful. That's what keeps us alive out there in the battlefield of life. That's what helps us keep standing tall.